All right, welcome to Talent Dad. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Skanson, and today we have a truly inspiring guest with us, Bradley James Davies, a celebrated school leader, once an Oscar Mayer Wienermobile driver. They don't just let anybody do that, by the way. He is a 2-decade journey through education that has encompassed both teaching, coaching, leading at all grade levels. He is founder of Falkor, a consultancy aimed at empowering leaders and in personal growth, and author of a great book called School Leadership from A to Z. He's raised in Minnesota, go MN, but now calling Colorado and maybe even Madrid home sometimes. Is this true? He's nodding. Yes. Bradley's unique strengths are transforming lives across sectors. So I want you to all stay tuned, get ready. Welcome, Brad. Bradley, Brad, how should we address you today?
Bradley, please. Thank you.
Bradley, please. All right, Bradley, please. Welcome to the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, gosh, you nailed a lot of it. First of all, proud to be from Minnesota, son of a bricklayer dad and a bookworm mom, and raised in the land of 10,000 lakes, and somehow stumbled upon education. And 20 years later, gosh, basically here I am speaking with you, Eric. So that's a real Cliff Notes version. And yes, there was an Oscar Mayer Wienermobile sprinkled in there along the way.
Don't worry, we might come back to that if we have time. So I'm just warning you right now.
Happy to. That would be wonderful, or wienerful.
Wienerful. Okay. Well, I mean, we already know a little bit about you, and tell us. So you're in Colorado right now, formerly Minnesota. Colorado. What draws you to Colorado? What do you love about Colorado?
Oh gosh, I mean, well, first I must say there are a lot of Minnesotans here in Colorado.
There is.
So I kind of feel among our people. I mean, gosh, I just think the mountains are transcendent, and whenever I'm in them, like I'm on a different plane as a human, joy and peace. And so, my gosh, add in sunshine, opportunity to be outside, and it's one of my special places for sure.
Bradley, I feel that way about winter when you have those days where like the trees are glistening and frosted and it's like sunny and 20, like that fulfills my soul. I feel like I want to go sit in the yard, have a drink, sit in my driveway, whatever it is. Those are my favorite days. So when you talk about like feeling at home and like with like transcendent, that is my spot. Sunny and 20, super bright, snow everywhere. I love it.
Well, we do know that sunny and 20 is a lot better than wet and 33.
Yes.
You actually take me back to my childhood. I remember like you'd be rocking your snowmobile suit and be laying in the snow, and it'd be snowing, you'd be totally quiet, and you can just hear the snow hitting the ground. Now, I also then think about waiting at a bus stop -30 as well, but we don't know about any of that.
Or the gross wet snow that gets splashed up and it's gray and it's like the worst ever. Yeah, totally.
Doesn't melt until April. Yes, there is.
Or it melts and then it freezes and then it melts and then it freezes. Yeah. Everybody that's not from Minnesota, like this.
There you got it. Now you know.
That's it. That's it. Now you know.
But we have a good attitude about it.
Yeah, totally. We love it. Okay, let's get into some meat here. Bradley, you have this book. And you explore the idea of leading well without losing your way. Do you want to share like a personal experience that like how did you get into this idea? Well, leading A to Z.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Eric. The reality is that I wrote School Leadership from A to Z to heal. And then I chose to publish it to help. And I needed to heal because, gosh, going back 2 years ago now, I'll go back a little bit farther. At 30, I was a high school principal. At 40, in the independent school world, I was the equivalent of a small district superintendent, head of school. And that was at 40. And so I was a shiny penny. Like everything was just, resume, face value. Everything was going great. And 6 years later, I'm in an emergency room on my back, thinking I'm going to die from a heart attack. And the reality is it was the first and only likely anxiety attack of my life. But Eric, I mean, to you and your guests, like I believed I was about to die. And yet that's not the saddest thing. The saddest thing is that as I'm laying there staring up at the lights and the folks working over me, I had the things in my chest, all the things. A woman comes next to me and says, "Sir, is there anyone you would like us to call?" And I share with her, "No, ma'am." And she pauses and she says, "Sir, are you sure?" And I say, "Yes, ma'am." And Eric, in that moment, just this tear of resignation rolls down my cheek. And I can talk about it now without crying, but it's the saddest, lowest moment of my life. Because yes, I was about to die, but the real sad tragedy is I was about to freaking die alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so coming out of that emergency room experience, it was a wake-up call. Physically, I was fine, thank God. But clearly I was not fine. And it was a catalyst of me doing a real self-analysis of what the heck went wrong in my life. And what I could point to is, while I loved the work of school leadership and I believe in schools passionately, I was not wearing it well. And it was compromising my mental health, my physical health, and my relational health. And so in that moment, I decided to walk away. That I was like, I'm just not, I may be doing the work well. And I'm proud I did alongside our teams for 2 decades, but it was literally killing me. And certainly it was during COVID, Eric. And so COVID was a contributor, but 2 years prior, I got shingles. I still have the scars along this left side of my body. And I'm on with virtual doctor, and he asked me to show him, and I show him, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you have shingles, clearly." And he says, "Shingles are stress induced. So are you under any particular stress?" Well, here I am. It's 3 days before school starts. I'm leading an elementary school and a middle school on 2 different campuses. And with complete sincerity, I share with this doctor, "No, sir, I'm not under any stress. Everything's fine.
I'm fine.
I'm fine." And so my awareness, especially via the lens of that emergency room experience, was that I was just absolutely drunk with self-deception. And it was my body that needed to wake me up to the unhealthy approach I had to this work. It was ludicrous how blind I was to the place where I was. So I'm grateful that my body tried to wake me up with a subtle nudge with shingles, and then knocked me over the head with this emergency room visit. So as I emerge, I'm like, all right, this work, though I love it, I'm not doing well. I'm not doing it in a way that is helping me live out my dreams relationally, etc. So I'm going to walk away. Well, Eric, that's when a new low set in. I mean, about 2 years ago, when I walk away from the work, I felt like such a wimp. I felt like such a loser. A lot of other people got through COVID, and they're still in schools. And so that's when I did a deep dive on my own wellness, on my own emotional health, and really then started to write to help myself heal. And as I started to write these short little essays about my experiences in 20 years, I started thinking, wow, maybe I could help. And that's when I committed to say, hey, I'm going to pull these essays together in an easily digestible way. I have short essays like A is for appreciation, B is for BCC, C is for culture, all the way to Z is for Libra. It's like, all right, I'm going to publish this and put it out and see if it can be helpful. And the response has been fantastic. I've been really humbled by school leaders reaching out saying, thanks for just naming how hard it is, and for some really helpful tips. Because fundamentally, my mission is to help school leaders not get to the place where I got.
Well, a couple of points I want to bring back to. Just think about this. How often do we see educators, principals, superintendents, teachers, paraprofessionals power through? You get to a break. What happens? You go home. What happens? They get sick. That's when their cold hits them. That's when the flu hits them. That's when their body lets down and they end up sick. So I think what you're, even in the story you're resonating with there, is we hold it in. We hold it together because we want to hold all of that weight, because we care so deeply about those that we are helping.
Correct.
Yes.
The default is serve. The default is give more. The default is choose the positive path. The default is to, hey, have the happy attitude, optimist, invest, pour into your people. And that is all right and true. And yet without real important awareness around wellness practices and implementing those practices, the risk of burnout is gigantic.
Yes, it's huge.
And so on a micro level, I just care about every individual leader, and not just for their own health, but their relational health and their families. On a macro level, if we have leaders limping into work every day, they're not going to be able to help their teachers be their best. And if teachers can't be their best, and teachers are limping into work every day, well, we can't help the kids become their best. So I just feel like there's a real opportunity here to come alongside school leaders, and not with an approach like, hey, I'm awesome, be like me. I'm proud of some of the hacks and tips and tricks I have in the book and that I share with clients. But ultimately, the message I have is, hey, I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is. And let's work together. Let's join arms about ways you can do it in a healthy way. So to ensure that leaders are able to flourish in the work and not struggle.
With the shortage happening right now, we cannot afford to burn people out and expect that we're going to replace them. I've had this thought for quite a while around this it's almost the throwaway paper plate attitude that we have, and it's moved into more than just the paper plates. Well, number one, it's moved into appliances, because my appliances just don't last, and they say they just throw them out and you replace them. So that's a whole nother thing. But once we've gotten to this point where we view that way about our people, that we'll use them up, burn them out, throw them out, get a new one in until that one is no longer viable. That's ridiculous. We cannot do that anymore. We got to start treating people like grandma's fine china here. Like, we need to take care of them. And I think you hit it on the head with ed leaders do not have to feel like they hold everything on their shoulders. They do not have to be perfect. They do not have to have all the answers. So why not reach out? Why not invest in yourself with coaching, which Bradley is available for, by the way, and treat yourself so that you can have happy life and happy school life. Like, they can coexist.
100%. And you speak to coaching, Eric, and I am biased because, obviously I function in that space. I have a fundamental belief that the best way to become a better leader is to become a better person. And whereas a lot of consultants in our space are, offering do more, my challenge is actually do less and be more, do less and become more. In order to expand our capacity as humans, as people, you have to have a coach or a counselor involved in your life. You can listen to the podcast, read the self-help, etc. But like my own story, the person we're most inclined to deceive in our lives is ourselves. Have someone in your life that can stand in that space of outsourced candor, stand in that space of holding up the mirror, and really offer some challenging questions is fundamental, I believe, to a leader thriving. I'm biased, but I believe had I had a trained executive leadership coach for the 20 years I was in schools, I'd be 20x the human being I am right now. I would likely still be in the trenches working with teachers and families, and I'd be thriving. Thriving. So one of my greatest recommendations is please don't try to lead alone. Life and leadership is too difficult to do on your own. Please reach out now. While things are good, reach out now to a counselor or leadership coach.
I think that is great advice. Reach out now. Like, you don't have to wait for stuff to go south, right?
Yeah. Because I'll tell you this story. I started working with a counselor about 4 years ago. I was leading the middle school and an elementary school, and the work was hard then. During my time of getting shingles, and Minnesota guy actually got set up with him because a colleague said, "Oh my gosh, you would love this guy, Jay. You guys are resident." So we went out for lunch one day, and he's about 20 years older than I am. Went to high school, neighboring city. I went to Apple Valley. He went to Burnsville. Hit it off. I said, "Jay, listen, for the last decade, I've been telling people that healthy people have counselors, but I haven't followed my own advice. So I've got a great connection with you. Work's kicking my butt. I would love just to start working with you on this." So I was in a relatively good place. And so, we were meeting every other week and exploring different aspects of my own personal growth. Well, then fast forward, to my emergency room experience. And I share this with him, and he's the one who said, if you don't walk away now, when? How much more? How much more evidence do you need? And he was an absolutely transformational figure in my life at that time. He spoke truth where no one else in my world was able to. So again, I benefited because we had the relational capital built up when things were okay, just typically difficult. So when Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall, I had that relationship. And since then, I now meet with Jay regularly, and I have an executive leadership coach. I continue to help invest in myself to expand my own capacity to lead and serve.
Well, and coaches are great because the question that you just said, who's going to tell you the truth? Right? It's not going to be the people that work for you.
Nope.
I mean, there will always be a divide, no matter how much. And I'm not saying that it's not possible, because of course there's some unique situations, but in the end, there's still a divide there. So who's going to tell you the truth?
The power dynamics fundamentally compromise our relationships with our employees. They fundamentally do. And I wrote an essay called "Why Is for You're Really Not That Funny," and the reality is, like, I realized way too far in that I was getting copious courteous laughs. Like, I'm like a 6 or a 7 on the funny scale. I'm not a 9. And my teams were leading me to believe I was like an 8 or a 9, and I'm not. And the reality is that our teams sugarcoat stuff. They're not true truth tellers, and so coach can sit in that space. And you also don't want to take it all home to your partner. That's not fair as well.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Nor healthy.
My brain is just hurting because I'm just thinking through, am I really an 8 or a 9? Maybe I'm not. My mind is just blown. Whew, I'm gonna have to render with that when we're done.
Yeah.
Tough we talk about humor and laughing. Let's get into some fun light stuff quick before we cut loose today. Bradley, you've driven the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. How, was there an audition, or were you just like in the right spot at the right time? Like, how do you get that job? Because we've seen it driving down the road. At least I have. I've seen it a couple of times.
Well, it's home base is Madison, Wisconsin, so Minnesota gets the mileage with the Wienermobile. Well, I'm going to date myself telling the story, but way back when, my senior year in college, my buddies were looking through a book, not Googling, but looking through a book that was titled something like, the 100 best jobs in America kind of thing. And one of the fellas said, "Oh my gosh, listen to this job, the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile." And, most of my friends just laughed it off. Like, they were off to be investment bankers and consultants and other fancy things. But I thought it sounded fantastic. So I started a campaign to let them know of my interest. I tried to send them funny and quippy things, like via mail, for crying out loud. And truth be told, there are 6 Wienermobiles, and they were looking to hire 12 what they call hot doggers, or drivers of the Wienermobile. And something absurd like 10 or 12,000 people apply for this every year. It's absurd. So I felt like I need to be proactive in my campaign. Ultimately, I went home to Minnesota for holiday break and reached out to the director of the Wienermobile program and said, "Hey, I'm willing to drive to Madison, Wisconsin to meet with you, even if it's just for 5 minutes." And that got me on his radar. So that got me a ticket to be a finalist. And then once you're a finalist, they fly you into Madison, Wisconsin. It's multiple days of interviews. The most nerve-wracking piece was you walk into this room with a bunch of bright lights. They have a camera. They give you a microphone, and they're like, "Would you sing the Oscar Mayer Wiener jingle, please?" So then you just have to just rock.
Did you know that ahead of time?
So I did memorize the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile jingle and the Bologna song, thinking, all right, I need to be savvy to this, not knowing that I'd have to sing it. Actually, funny aside is I don't believe I have a great voice singing. So I chose to sing it as an Elvis Presley impersonation, which I will not do on air. That was just
that was going to be my next question. Come on.
Yep, one and done. And
can we find it anywhere?
I'm sure it's not. It might be on video on VHS in Wisconsin somewhere. So I'm pretty confident my Elvis impersonation set me over the top, and I got the job.
That's amazing.
Driving to 36 different states, as we said, spreading miles of smiles. And good experience. Yeah. So I'm grateful for it.
That might have been the hardest interview you have ever done.
Probably, yes. Yeah. Shot.
Just a little bit more to get to know you. If you're going to be driving around, would you rather drive the Wienermobile or a luxury sedan?
Ooh, well, okay, this is getting to my Minnesota roots. I would prefer basically anything to a luxury sedan. I'm not luxury, so
Hmm.
I would drive a snowplow over a luxury sedan
Nice.
any day. So,
Minnesota winter or Madrid summer?
oh boy, oh boy, Madrid summers, for those who don't know, are hot. It is an oven.
These are extremes.
I must say though, gosh, I know it's my homeland, but that wind chill, Eric, is brutal. I think I'm
Hmm.
going to Madrid in the summer.
Okay.
So,
Let's go. If you were going to pick up a book, would you pick up a leadership book or an adventure novel? Or maybe something else? What's your go-to?
I've been really drawn to the human narrative lately. So right now, I would say I'm drawn to biographies and autobiographies.
Nice.
Recently, I just finished Bono's book and also Andre Agassi's autobiography. Both were just tremendous. Just
Oh.
I think since 2 years ago, I was in the lowest point in my life, and I think I'm just now drawn to just the vicissitudes
Mhm.
of the macro arc of one's life and the ups, downs, and all arounds. That's kind of where I'm drawn to right now.
If you need some happiness in your life, are you going to go into the Colorado mountains or will you feast on some Spanish? I might even say this wrong. Tapas?
The tapas.
Tapas?
There's Yeah, a night out in Madrid eating tapas with friends is fantastic. But for me, there's nothing like being in the mountains. There's just
Okay.
nothing.
All right.
I'm good with
Uh,
Colorado.
what's going to calm you down more? Driving and having a co-driver in the Wienermobile or hanging with the therapy dog Fred?
Oh my gosh, it's such an easy answer. But before I just hammer it home, I must tell you, one of my Wienermobile partners, the rule was whoever drove got to choose the music. And she chose every time college a cappella. And I respect a cappella. But my gosh, every time, because you can just imagine, like I was willing to drive
Uh-huh.
whenever the option. Um, and to be honest, my future therapy dog named Fred, I mean, we're besties, so I can't wait to spend
But
time with
he, the Wienermobile is not also a camper, is it?
him.
Like, do you sleep in the Wienermobile?
No, it was like one of those like fancy vans. So
Okay,
we
okay.
hotels, yeah.
You
But road
did get
trip,
hotels.
lots of miles, but put in lots of miles.
All right. So if you're going to take care of yourself, what's going to be better, radical self-care or a Wienermobile world tour? Like
Oh my
what's going to be happier for your soul?
I mean, we could dig into what radical self-care looks like. I don't know if I'd have a Wienermobile world tour in me anymore. That was probably better for my 20s.
Uh, I,
I'd probably opt out at this point in time.
Bradley, there might be enough here to unpack for like two, three, 4 episodes. I'm just going to say.
Well,
Okay, let's
yeah.
get into this. We covered a lot of ground today. It's about self-care, it's about taking care of yourself. Um, we actually found some good insight if you want to learn how to be the Wienermobile driver as well. That's some gold right there.
There you go.
But I want to hear from you. What's your final call to action today for those that are listening?
My final call to action, if my greatest hope for school leaders is to help them avoid the low where I got, is to get yourself a buddy bench, build yourself a buddy bench. And
Mm,
lots of school leaders are familiar, particularly elementary school folks like me and you. We know about a buddy bench at recess,
mhm.
place where a kid can go and sit down if they have no one to play with. And it's a subtle gesture to say, hey, I'd love to join in if anyone would invite me. It's a beautiful thing to see, right? When you see a little kid come up and say, hey, Eric, would you like to play with us?
Mhm.
Beautiful thing. And so I like to talk to my clients about building a buddy bench. And part of that is get yourself a counselor or an executive leadership coach, but also find yourself a few colleagues who are in the work,
Mhm.
you can be real with, who you can cultivate intentional community with, not just beer buddies, not just, go for run buddies where frankly, you can be friends for years and not really talk about anything
That's
significant.
true.
But truly, like I joke around about how we wear navy blue blazers as school leaders and we talk about everything's great, everything's awesome, because it's understandable. We're the chief storytellers
Mhm.
of our school communities. narrative. But in terms of a buddy bench, find yourself a few folks that you can be real with. And then I like to say that a drop of intentionality gets you a gallon back. So as part of that small group, maybe even of a buddy bench of colleagues, bring to each Zoom call or each dinner some intentionality, some examples. It could be a rosebud thorn. It could be a high-low yay since the last time you met. Or better yet, you could literally say, we're all going to bring one burden and one best practice. Because in community, hurts are halved and joys are doubled. So we can bring this burden and have other people help us carry it. And we can bring this best practice. It can be some small little work hack that we've stumbled upon. Well, then those can be adopted and scaled. So build yourself a buddy bench. It's the best thing that you can do for your own wellness and sustainability in the work, because school leaders, we need you. We need you. So
we
please.
do. There you have it, folks. That sounded so Minnesota when I just said it.
Okie dokie.
Oh, there you go, folks. All right.
For some later.
Yeah, totally. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to this episode of Talent Ed. A huge thank you to Bradley for sharing his wisdom, his insights, and of course, some insight on the Wienermobile. I think that's what everybody's going to be clamoring about here. We hope you've taken away something valuable. I'm being facetious. You have so much to offer, Bradley, and we're so happy that you did offer that for us. Think about leading well without losing your way, right? And feel inspired. Here's what I like to say: stay PKS, which is positive, kind, and supportive in your leadership journey. Remember that when you're an educator, entrepreneur, explorer at heart, your path to growth is paved with intention and authenticity. And this is what we heard from Bradley today. So join us next time for more inspiring conversations. And until then, stay PKS, which is positive, kind, supportive, and keep leading the way, everybody. Thank you.